Welcome back to our Line Opinion panelists. We're done dissecting the primary. Time to move on to the general. The race for governor is the big one, and 3 U.S. House seats are also up for a vote. Sticking with the governor's race right now, Mark Ronchetti ran away with the Republican nomination and seems to have a motivated core group behind him. Daniel, should Democrats be worried?
I think they should be real worried.
Why?
I think they should be real worried. One, if you look at the turnout in the primary over the last 10, 15 years, Democrats are vastly dropping off. I mean, in 2000, they had over 200,000 votes in the primary that were cast. This election, they had about 100. Looks like they're going to be around 130 to 140 votes cast. Republicans, for a bellwether for us, was the primary 2010 between Way and Martinez. And we had a little over 122,000. It looks like in 2022, we're going to hit or exceed that number. So what that means to me is there seems to be energy in the Republican base to get out and get involved. There doesn't seem to be as much energy in the Democrat base to get out and get involved. And the reason that I think it's even more of an example is lots of times in New Mexico, it's hard to take this information in a primary for Democrats because Democrats rarely have highly contested primaries. They're in charge. They pretty much are running as incumbents, but they had that this year. You had a pretty contested top of the ticket Democrat primary for AG, and it didn't seem to energize individuals as much as you would think it would. With the Ronchetti situation, I mean, to come out with 58% of the vote in a primary, to come out with 58% of the vote in a 5-person race is pretty dadgum impressive. I mean, that's a rarity. And so he pulled it out. So I think it shows you that he clearly has support of Republicans, the Republican establishment behind him. I think he's going to wind up getting support. And contrary to what some bloggers want to say, you've already seen Greg Zanetti's already committed to supporting Mark Ronchetti. I think Rebecca Dow is going to support Ronchetti. I think you're going to see all energy from Republicans because I think they see an opportunity for a victory at the top of the ticket this year. So I think things are, and like we said earlier, Gene, it's just stamped with at the very end. I mean, you tell me the last time that the Republican governor's campaign, the Republican Governors Association came in 2 days after an election, a primary, to take on a challenger in New Mexico and dumped money to buy to do TV buys. They got to see. Yeah. They got to see something out there as well.
You know, a good reminder here is Mr. Ronchetti was within 6 points of Ben Ray Lujan of that Senate race, so it wasn't as if he got wiped out there. Senator Feldman, interestingly, the money advantage, we got to get right to this. Governor Lujan Grisham has just over $3 million in the bank. Mr. Ronchetti spent down to about $470,000. One, does he have enough time to make up that kind of money, given what Dan was saying, with outside help as well? But two, is the governor insulated just strictly from the money? Can she spend her opponent down at this point, starting early and often?
Well, I think that's precisely why this outside money from the national Republicans is pouring in right now, because they see that Ronchetti has only $500,000 in his account, and they're going to make up the difference. And they do smell blood. I agree with Dan. But this is not, and the whole thing about the Republicans being energized this year, whereas the Democrats are not, I think that's really true nationwide. It's a typical off-year election during the middle of a presidential term. And for me, looking at the primary turnout this year, and saying, oh, the Republicans are on the upswing and the Democrats are not participating as much. Well, of course, they did not have a contest at the top of the ticket. And that's what people glom onto, not the attorney general's race, not who's going to turn out for the treasurer's race or the auditor's race. It's the governor that captures the attention. You know, yes, the national polls and pundits still call this governor's race lean Democratic. It leans Democratic. It's not a certain Democratic seat. And that is going to galvanize the Democrats as well as the Republicans. And of course, the race in the 2nd congressional district, where there's an opportunity to flip a Republican seat in the House, is going to garner some national attention as well from the Democrats. So I think that both sides are going to have plenty of money, and the money will flow into New Mexico, even if no matter what happens in other states, because in New Mexico, we're a cheap date. You can buy a lot. You can buy a lot of advertising if you're the Republican National Committee, or if you're the House Majority Committee. So it's going to come.
Mm-hmm. Dave, I'm interested in your thoughts on the governor's race, of course. What does Governor Lujan Grisham have to do to kind of shore up her vulnerabilities, just put it that way? Is there a different message there?
Song, so let me sing it. I think if we hear of one party, either the Democrats or the Republicans, at all the levels saying, we're going to make a big push to register voters. We're going to make a big push to get out there and try and engage young people. Mm-hmm. I think Michelle Lujan Grisham has done tremendous things for the state. She brought in nearly $20 billion in federal money. And, but like everything, everybody only remembers what you did for them yesterday, and that's what she's going to have to run on. And I think, but if we hear.
There's a lot of constituencies out there, Dave, that are, not too crazy about how she handled the pandemic, how businesses suffered here. There's a lot of vulnerability, it would seem.
Right. And I think the national Democrats are not helping with this idea of defund the police and, lots of issues that when people feel, threatened by crime, they're not happy. I mean, I was in New York in 92 and when Rudy Giuliani was running as the law and order candidate for mayor, it's New York. It's like, the heart of liberalism. And all of us are listening to Rudy going, I'm tired of people, urinating on the sidewalk. And we're all like, yeah, I'm tired of that too. And everybody voted for him, So, all Democrats have to be careful. But I think she's got a pretty strong team. She's got a lot of money. She's a good politician. I think that, I think she can pull it off, but we'll see. You never know. Mm-hmm. The electorate seems restless. The electorate seems unknowable, which is never a good thing for the incumbent.
That's a good point right
Gene,
there.
Remember this, Gene. In the last 40 years, New Mexico has only elected a governor in the same party as the White House once, Carruthers in 1986.
Interesting.
So this is a great environment for the Republican candidate to be running against an incumbent Democrat with a Democrat in the president as the president from historical statistical perspective in the state of New Mexico. So I think that, it's clear that with Ronchetti 58% in a 5-person race in the primary with a dominant performance, that I think he's well positioned heading into the general.
Mm-hmm. Senator Feldman, I want to retouch on something you just mentioned in passing a second ago in looking ahead to the 3 U.S. House races. The most intriguing to me will be the newly minted CD2, of course, being defended by Republican incumbent Yvette Herrell. A lot of that seat, of course, abuts CD1 up here in the Albuquerque area. What does that do to campaigning, confusion? There's a lot of different factors going on here.
Well, yes, this is a whole new ballgame now for CD2 because it includes the South Valley of Albuquerque and parts of the West Side. And it will tilt more Democratic this year as a result of redistricting. And so it's going to be more of a race. And also, I think Representative or Congresswoman Herrell has proven herself to be really right-wing and made a lot of statements that will not sit well with her new constituents. And so I think that unless she gets up here and starts really campaigning like crazy, and I've seen her maybe once in this area, she's going to have quite a challenge from Gabe Vasquez, who is well known in the South and was a city councilor in Las Cruces and is a very energetic campaigner. So we'll see what happens there. But that's certainly going to be a race that turns out Democratic voters. And that will, of course, have an impact on the governor's race as well. So just as this time the having no contest at the top of the Democratic ticket depressed Democratic turnout somewhat in this primary. I think having this hot race in the South is going to help the Democrats.
Good point there. Dave, the other two U.S. House races are close to home. District 1 here, incumbent Democrat Melanie Stansbury takes on Republican Michelle Garcia Holmes again. And in District 3, incumbent Democrat Teresa Leger Fernandez faces Alexis Martinez Johnson. Familiar names in oppositions there, but the obvious question, are those safe seats for Democrats, or all that we're talking about here make it a little bit different than safe?
Well, I mean, define safe seat.
Good point.
Anything is possible. But also, don't forget, all three of these districts are new. And, and I know that it was very much looked at that the Democrats in the state legislature were in charge, and they thought, well, we can fix this. But like sometimes you do, with the best intentions, you cause things that you weren't expecting. And so, and again, I think turnout is going to be key. I mean, when you look at it, like, up north in Teresa Leger, her district, they've been dislocated on a massive scale. I mean, I don't know if it affects 1 or 2 or 3 points or 10 points, the number of people that have been, dislodged because of these fires. So we don't know. And, that the number 3 thing is new, but if you ask the average person, they have no idea what their congressional boundaries look like. So,
I'm getting that feedback from a lot of people right now, especially in the South Valley area that Dee Dee mentioned. It's a lot of crossover. It's news to a lot of people at this point. It's
I think, Gene, I think there's going to be I think there's a couple of things on the congressional races. One is, I think Senator Joseph Cervantes got his wish. And he's been, since I was in the legislature, he's been talking about making all the districts more competitive, and all the districts are more competitive now. The Republican one's a little more competitive for D's. Now, I still think it's a leaning Republican seat. And, that I think it's the first congressional district. The third one is more competitive for ours now than it was in the past. I think a couple things to be said about these upcoming congressional races. Dee Dee's right. There's going to be a push by Democrats, but the Republicans aren't going to go asleep at the wheel. Right. I mean, you're going to see southeastern New Mexico. I think if they've done anything to energize southeastern New Mexico, there's a reason why those of us that didn't live here refer to this as the Emerald City. And so when you start saying, hey, listen, we're going to let people from Albuquerque decide who represents Roswell, you're going to get more people to turn out. And I think you're going to find that there may be some people who cross party lines for geographic lines to support keeping somebody close to home.
Interesting points there. We'll be keeping an eye on campaign season in the coming weeks and months ahead of the general election, of course. Thank you once again to our Line Opinion panelists. We'll see you back at the virtual roundtable one final time in less than 15 minutes. But first, an important conversation between environment reporter Laura Paskus and the chief engineer at the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District. Now, as Jason Kasuga puts it, the outlook for water supply from the river is bleak.